All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our 5th edition BCBA task list series. We are continuing with H5, possible unwanted effects when using reinforcement, extinction, and punishment. These are our principles. These are our primary consequences where we are increasing and decreasing behavior. And while they are effective and while they're what we use in our interventions, there are things we need to be aware of when training technicians and stakeholders for implementation because things can go wrong and mistakes can be made, and there are side effects in any sort of behavior change program. So that's what we're going to cover today. We are preparing for the 6th edition, which will be out soon. Our plan is October, so if you're listening to this in the future, it's likely already out. We're going to be making a task list series again for that. We're also going to have our full task list review and 6th edition practice exams. So be on the lookout for that. If you buy the 5th edition, we will send you those 6 editions at no additional charge. Just reach out to us with any questions. As always, be sure to check out behavioranalyststudy.com for those study materials. Be sure to subscribe for all the updates, including the 6th edition, which will be starting soon. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. So plan for possible unwanted effects when using reinforcement, extinction, and punishment. Now, this is going to be much more bullet point oriented because it's not a very deep topic, but it's just a lot of ideas that you want to be aware of and create awareness in your team. So you want to prepare well ahead of time. As an analyst, one of your key roles is just preparation. If you're prepared, you need to prepare your team. So when we're using punishment and extinction, of course, those are behavior decrease consequences, so to speak. There is a lot of ethical concerns, especially behind punishment. But even when we're using reinforcement to increase target behaviors, that can also lead to unwanted consequences. So we just have to be considerate of what behaviors do our clients possess? What is the environment like? The old quote, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. H5 is all about planning. It's all about preparation, being ready for these potential side effects. Consider writing a plan for unwanted effects. We write crisis intervention plans. We write behavior intervention plans. Why not have a plan for when you inadvertently reinforce a behavior or if you accidentally don't implement extinction correctly? Have a plan for that as well. With that said, let's start with the unwanted effects of reinforcement. Reinforcement, of course, is when we follow a response with a consequence that is going to increase that behavior. Now, when we're teaching skills, we're obviously trying to reinforce those skills, and it's very powerful for increasing behavior. But some things we have to consider is what does our reinforcement schedule look like, and how quickly are we going to fade that reinforcement? What you don't want to happen is your reinforcement schedule remains too thick for too long, or reinforcement's too easy to access, because that behavior is going to become reliant on receiving reinforcement to maintain. Remember, our job is to fade out reinforcement, hopefully to a point where behavior is just getting reinforced naturally by the environment. And the more we can fade out reinforcement, the stronger we can make that behavior and the more we can help it maintain. Satiation. The reason we want to do preference assessments and reinforcer assessments is because we want a pool of reinforcers to choose from. A lot of times with the populations we work with, they might only have 1 or 2 items that really function as reinforcement. And that's a problem because if we use it over and over again, the effectiveness could eventually wear down. So you really want to work hard at introducing new stimuli, finding new items that you can use as reinforcement. And then maybe the biggest one is that inadvertent reinforcement. This is especially true for attention. Reinforcement doesn't pick and choose. Whatever we reinforce, whatever behavior is followed by reinforcement is going to increase. That's just how reinforcement works. And this is especially true for attention. So when you have a client who might engage in behavior throughout the day, you want to be very careful about what you are and are not giving attention to. Because whether you like it or not, you may be delivering reinforcement. So you want to be very smart and careful about inadvertently reinforcing behaviors because now you're just causing yourself whole new situations to deal with. All right, let's think about extinction. Extinction is when we're withholding reinforcement as a consequence, which decreases behavior. With extinction, it's a little more clear cut because we typically define these, such as extinction burst, which you all are hopefully familiar with, where we expect behavior to temporarily get worse when extinction first starts. So if we have a behavior, it's here, and let's say extinction starts here, we expect behavior to do this first and then taper off and then finally decrease again. That's just what we expect. And so we can plan for that. We can warn stakeholders. We can train technicians. We kind of have an idea of an extinction burst, what it looks like, and how to prepare for it. Now, extinction can lead to emotional responses, including aggression. And this is what you want to look out for. You've got to think, especially behaviors with a long history of reinforcement. Once you start withholding that reinforcement, those behaviors are going to do anything they can to find that reinforcement again. So this can lead to emotional responses, crying and screaming. It can lead to aggression, kicking. We have to be ready for that. That leads to the next point, the failure to follow through. You have to be absolutely sure that your team, both the stakeholders and the interventionist, your technicians, are going to follow through with extinction. Extinction has to happen as close to 100% of the time as possible. If you don't think your team can implement extinction with fidelity, you want to try something else. The worst thing you can do is create an extinction plan and only implement it 60% of the time. You're just really messing up the reinforcement schedule. You're typically making the behavior worse. You've got to be very, very, very aware of, is this extinction procedure possible to implement consistently with fidelity? And then what happens after extinction? Well, we can plan for spontaneous recovery and resurgence where behavior comes back, right? Behavior's been on extinction, decreases, goes away, and then it appears again. Again, we can plan for that. You want to have a plan in place, and typically that's going to be when the old behavior resurfaces, we just put it on extinction once again. And then finally, punishment. Punishment's always the big one because punishment has that stigma around it of being aversive, of being punitive. And as analysts, we know, yes, we use aversive items to punish at times, but all we're trying to do is decrease the behavior. It doesn't really matter what we're using. If it's punishment, it's decreasing the behavior. So punishment can also lead to emotional reactions and punishment-induced aggression, where now you're introducing things that your learner may not be aware of or may not like, and that can lead to crying and screaming and aggression. There's also ethical concerns over the safety and well-being of the client. Remember, punishment, we want to use punishment that is high in magnitude, right? And as the analyst, it's your job to design the punishment that is safe and promotes the well-being of the client. But as we know, things can go wrong in the heat of the moment. We've got to be aware at all times of the safety and the well-being and doing no harm to the client. It can cause a technician or stakeholder to pair themselves with punishment, creating a conditioned punisher. If you've got a technician or a parent who's always punishing, that can lead to really negative consequences for rapport and the relationship. Because now, what does that technician signal? Well, it signals an SD for punishment, or the technician becomes punishing in itself and they become aversive. And that's a real issue. So you want to have a nice mix of punishment and reinforcement mixed in. Escape and avoidance. Of course, if you're always being punished, if things are always being taken away from you, that can lead to avoidance. Let me get away from the punishment. And then decreased motivation. For example, if you're taking away something as punishment and you take away the client's favorite toy, well, what motivation is there to work if they can't earn that toy? You got to be very careful about balancing the punishment with, we still want our client to do what we want them to do, what we ask. But if there's nothing to work for, or if they know they're just going to get punished, that motivation can drop drastically. So punishment is probably the most difficult because there's a lot of different things you got to consider. But if you just keep in mind, I want to be ethical. I want to maintain my client's safety, and I want to promote the well-being of the client, and I want to maintain a good relationship with the client. Those should be your guiding ideas when using punishment. So final thoughts. You obviously want to monitor the side effects each time you are conducting supervision, right? So when you're out there, are you witnessing inadvertent supervision? Is the punishment being punitive? Is the punishment punitive? Is extinction being implemented with fidelity? All these things you want to check. Fidelity checks, huge. Is your plan being implemented consistently? You always want to try to use the least restrictive intervention, and ethical interventions are always preferred. And then, of course, treatment plans are organic. You want to adjust accordingly. Thanks for watching. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for all of our study materials. Be sure to subscribe for all of our 5th edition content and soon to be 6th edition content. When you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.